What's up, everybody? Welcome to the newest episode of the Debate Mates. The last one before the regular season starts. It's already right there on Tuesday. I'm Matthew, and I am joined by Mr. Mercier, the man, the myth, the legend, the greatest guitar player from the 757 of all time.
That might be a bit hyperbolic, but I'll take it. Thank you, Matt. Thank you.
And member of legendary punk rock band Squirt.
That's true.
It is true. So, Mr. Mercier, thank you for joining us today on the Debate Mates. And we got a fun episode for you all planned today. The same one Mr. Mercier was in last year, which is where we do our predictions for how the playoff seeding will break out. The one top team through the 8 team in each conference. I did a little bit of overkill. I went 1 through 15. And even went as far as giving each team what I think their record will be at the end of the season. Just I think it made it easier for me visually to rank them when I could see numbers next to their names. But
it's a lot smarter method than mine.
Well, we'll see whose is more accurate, though. So
probably yours.
We'll see. So we're going to start in the Western Conference. But before we do that, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. With the season starting up, we're going to be having a lot of new content, a lot of new stuff reacting to current games. And, of course, with Kyrie Irving, Ben Simmons, it looks like the news is not going to be stopping at all this season. So got to stay here, stay subscribed to get updated on all that. And without further ado, let's start in the Western Conference. Mr. Mercier, you want to get us started off? We're going 8-1, or how are we doing this?
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm going to go 1-8 because
Okay.
The West is just too predictable, I think. So at 1, adding Westbrook and a plethora of other role guys. I mean, the Lakers crushed free agency this year. So while they're not studs, having guys like Wayne Ellington, who is a pretty, accomplished veteran, gives them some really good outside shooting, some defense. Between Westbrook, James, Davis, how do you game plan for that? They've added, Dwight Howard back in the fold as a backup. So they've got pretty good presence on their front line. I just don't see anybody messing with the Lakers this year. But there's always this caveat. LeBron James, 108 years old. Anthony Davis, one of the greatest basketball players ever made of balsam wood. So their season could easily be derailed, much like last year, simply through injury. I would not be surprised for that to happen. But forecasting injury is not something that we tend to want to try to do because you really can't. So there's a good chance the Lakers end up below number 1. But if health prevails, I don't see any team in the West or anyone else really topping that lineup. Number 2, I wanted to put the Nuggets here because of their track record. But with Murray being out for a good chunk of the season, I bumped them down a bit. And I actually put the Jazz finishing in 2nd place. Or this is a 2 seed, rather. Pretty much the same cast of characters is back. That's just a well-run, well-coached team. They don't have any glaring weaknesses. They added Whiteside, so if Gobert gets into foul trouble, they have another pretty solid big to bring in. Was impressed with Clarkson last year when he played, filled in for Mitchell when he was hurt. So I just think there's a lot of talent on the team. Donovan Mitchell's a superstar. Ingles is really solid.
Conley is signing Rudy Gay in the offseason, adding him, accomplished scorer off the bench.
Exactly, and that was exactly where I was going to go. That's probably the most underrated free agent signing. Real productive with the Spurs last year, even at age 40 or whatever Rudy Gay is now. So it's nice to see some of these old guys still in there and producing. But, yeah, I think that was a great signing. Give them 15, 20, 22 minutes off the bench. Scoring pop, solid defense, always a solid defender. I think he'll fit right into the Jazz's scheme. So, yeah, I think they slide into the 2nd spot. Barring Chris Paul having a fall off the cliff season, which we start to expect that with some of these older guys at some point, but Chris Paul played like Chris Paul last year. So I have the Suns at number 3 as the 3 seed. Didn't lose anything, and they bring back everything that they had last year, and they finished as the 1 seed in the West last year, right? Or 2 seed?
2 seed, right behind the Jazz.
2 seed last year. So I don't see much of a drop off for them or the Jazz. I just bump the Lakers ahead of them.
Plus,
they could just
JaVale McGee, who was better center off the bench than they had at all last year.
Who's that?
JaVale McGee brought him in over the offseason from the Nuggets, better center than or best center off the bench for them, better than last year.
Exactly. Yeah. So if something does happen to Ayton, at least they have a guy who can come in there and give them some solid minutes down low. And so I think, they're another one of those teams that were really well rounded. They don't really have a glaring weakness. Some strong defenders like Bridges, and I like Cam Johnson a lot too. I don't know if he'll eventually pop off. That could just be me being a UNC homer or something, but a solid team. I've got my boy Steph Curry bringing him back this year. I know Thompson's going to be out until at least the new year, but he'll come back in, and by the time we get to the playoff end of the year, I think the Warriors are going to be rolling. And I got to check that free agent list, but they made some pretty good moves in the offseason. Guys like Jordan Poole, I think, are going to step up this year. He's been crushing the preseason. I know it's preseason. We can't really judge that. But Jordan Poole is
a player pick.
I had him on my list for most improved player. I don't know if I pick him, but he's definitely a strong option for that. I think he's going to get more minutes. I think that was the thing for Jordan Poole in the past, was just not really consistent minutes. But that guy's got potential, a lot of potential. So between Poole, but bringing in a guy like Otto Porter, if he can stay healthy, Otto Porter, king of 60 missed games every season. But if he stays healthy, it's a 3-and-D guy that adds a lot to that team. I mean, he does a little bit of everything. But I think he fits into that scheme. Iguodala's back.
Iggy's back.
Iggy is back in Oakland. Like, whoa, I did not expect to see that. But I mean, I think the key for the Warriors this year is getting something out of James Wiseman. If James Wiseman can elevate his game from what we saw, obviously he was hurt his whole rookie season for just about, but if he steps his game up and produces like a lottery big should produce, or even a second-year lottery big, I think that the Warriors are going to be a really tough team to contend with all year, especially once Klay Thompson comes back, obviously. Once you get the Splash Bros, I mean.
I'd argue, I think Jordan Poole, if he's able to have a really good couple of months before Klay Thompson comes back, I think he could be a really valuable piece, because they could throw out a fantastic depth lineup with Curry, Poole, Klay Thompson, Wiggins, and Draymond at the 5. Because if you look back through their dynasty years, all of their most successful lineups have been without a 5 on the floor. They've had Bogut, they've had Pachulia, McGee, serviceable guys, but not real, dominant down low players or anything like that.
That's true. They give that to Dre.
Those small ball lineups, they just work for Golden State. So if Jordan Poole can slide in and be a serviceable 5th option on the Warriors, or even Otto Porter, a guy you threw out earlier, or if Iggy is still got anything left in the tank, if they can get something out of one of those 3 guys and be able to run another small ball lineup like they've done every year for the past 5-6 years, then I think they'll be deadly.
I agree. Even guys like Damian Lee have produced for them in the past. Obviously injury-riddled seasons, but they've got a really deep squad. But I'm with you on that, man. I think Jordan Poole is a breakout candidate this year. I like your pick as most improved player. I mean, he's definitely on that short list for me. So I think the Warriors are coming back with a vengeance. I put the Nuggets 5th. I think that Jamal Murray injury actually is a problem for them. But they've got 2 superstars. I mean, Michael Porter Jr., I think, is on the verge of superstardom at this point. A soon-to-be all-star, probably this year, although there's a lot to compete with in the West. But when you have Nikola Jokic, I mean, you can't slide them but so low. And really, 5 might be too low for the Nuggets, frankly.
I have the Nuggets at 5 as well.
Okay, well, maybe we are just 100% correct.
Hopefully.
We just know what we're doing here.
Great minds think alike.
That's right. And some of their, some of this, I expect them to struggle a little bit early in the season, especially when they play any of these upper echelon teams. Missing a guy like Murray is a pretty big deal. But if like Campazzo, what is it? What is the name?
Facundo Campazzo.
Facundo Campazzo. Thank you. That's a lot of syllables. If he takes another step, I mean, he was pretty solid in relief duty or in sub duty last year, but not. I mean, he's not giving you the same kind of game as Murray. He doesn't have the scoring pop. But if he can facilitate some offense and help some of the other guys get out there, I mean, PJ Dozier is got, a guy with some potential offensively. But, anytime you have Jokic, you're still in contention. So that guy's just phenomenal. My 6th seed, this is where it gets dicey, is after those top 5 teams in the West is where it starts to get kind of muddled. And I think you're going to see a scenario where probably 4 or 5 teams are competing to the end of the season to get these last couple of spots. But at number 6, I put the Trailblazers. I thought they made some solid moves in free agency. They lost Carmelo, but, you got Damian Lillard, who's one of the top guards in the league still to this point. CJ McCollum, I mean, it's a killer 1-2 combo in their backcourt. I have always been a huge fan of Yusuf Nurkic. If he can stay healthy, I think he's the key to Portland's success this year because he does everything. I mean, he's a solid defender down low. He can score from multiple points on the court. He is a great assist man. And it's crazy to think that Denver had him and Jokic at the same time, and they're almost like the same guy. Nurkic isn't as good as Jokic, obviously, but I think he does a lot. And so I think in his second year, a guy like Covington settling in a little bit, he was not very good last year, but that's the first time Covington hasn't been particularly productive. I think that he makes a huge impact this year. And a guy like Norman Powell, Tony Snell, they have a lot of guys who can provide depth for this team.
Larry Nance Jr. in the offseason added him as well.
Larry Nance Jr., yep, that's the other one. And that's a big get. I mean, Nance is super productive when he plays. The problem with Larry Nance is like some of these other guys, he's frequently injured. He's a hustle guy, so he's like breaking fingers and spraining ankles and stuff, running all over the court. But I do like the Trailblazers, what they've assembled. They have a core unit that's coming back. So 7, I didn't actually want to put this here. This is actually not – initially I put this team out of the top 8. But the Clippers. I'm putting the Clippers at 7. I don't know that I want them there still. But it's a belief in Paul George, I guess, at this point. Kawhi, I don't think he's going to play this year. If he does, you're talking about coming back at the very, very end, and how hard are they really going to push him when he was taking every other game off anyways prior to tearing his ACL. So I don't have a good feeling that Kawhi is going to be back in the fold this year. They still have enough talent to compete and push for a back-end playoff spot. I don't know. Initially I didn't put them in though, because of that. But then I looked at these other teams that I have competing for the 8th spot. And for me, it's between the Grizzlies, the Mavericks, the Pelicans, and the Timberwolves. And who I want to put in there, honestly, is the Pelicans. But Zion's most recent injury is concerning for their development. I think they have enough bigs to withstand some missed games from Zion. But what if Zion can't get right all year? He's got feet problems. He's got lower extremity issues. Which puts me on the Wolves as a team that's definitely up and coming.
You and I could not disagree more about the Mavericks. I'm the complete polar opposite direction as you on them.
You have the Mavericks way up?
I have them way up.
Man, Luka is the reason I even have him in the discussion. But then they didn't do anything from last year. They really made no significant changes. When Tim Hardaway's your number 2, I mean, who is their number 2? Because Porzingis is going to play 20 games.
You would hope hope it'd be Porzingis.
You hope it would be, but he has a track record of not staying healthy. Sometimes when you're 7'3" and you try to do all these things that a professional basketball player does, the body says no, and I'm afraid that's the Porzingis curse. The unicorn is phenomenal when he is healthy. But how long before he ends up on the injury report every day? So that's my concern. I know we shouldn't. Again, I said earlier we shouldn't predict injuries, but Porzingis to me is just
not really even a prediction. That's kind of just a lock.
You're right. I've just come to understand he's going to be hurt. It's kind of the same way with Anthony Davis. So maybe that Lakers pick is still too ambitious. But with Porzingis, I mean, that's really been the story of his entire career at this point. And last year, the Mavericks just did not look good to me as a team. I mean, it's the Luka Doncic show. But who else? Who else is there with them? I mean, Jalen Brunson and guys like that. It's
right.
Dorian Finney-Smith, Dwight Powell. I mean, none of these guys inspires much confidence to me. And with a new coach coming in,
Who doesn't have a great track record for himself either, at least not as a head coach.
Right, and that's where and that's my issue with the Clippers too. Is nothing against Tyronn Lue, but like when he did take a team to the finals, it was the LeBron Cavs. Well, every coach of the LeBron Cavs got to the finals, so I don't know that Lue is good, bad, or indifferent, but yeah, I'm kind of down on the Mavericks this year, and God forbid something does happen to Luka Doncic where he has to miss an extended period of time. Well, they're going to lose every single game that he's out, so. That's why I put them down there in that sort of in the scrap heap, fighting for those 7 and 8
game area.
Yeah, I think the team that I actually like the best out of between the Clippers, Mavericks, Timberwolves, and you're gonna laugh at me probably, Timberwolves and Pelicans is actually the Memphis Grizzlies is the 5th team I have in this scrum, and they got there last year.
No complaint from me. Grizzlies are a very solid team.
That's a solid team. I think that's one of those teams where if Ja Morant can mature, I don't really know what the word is for him. He's underachieved at this point. If he can get anywhere near the expectations for what the expectations were for him, that team's going to be it's really tough to beat. And Jaren Jackson Jr. is like a unicorn freak, but again, like Porzingis, always hurt. So a lot hinges on those two guys for me. And, I think if they stay healthy, the Grizzlies could easily find themselves in the 6-5 seed, pending health. So I think I'm putting the Grizzlies at 8. And I might pull the Clippers back out by tomorrow and stick one of those other teams in there. I mean, I like the Pelicans this year too. I don't want to say that Lonzo Ball was addition by subtraction, but I'm a pretty big fan of Alexander Walker there. So I think they're going to be A-okay. And they brought in who's their other point guard?
Devontae Graham.
Did they bring in Devontae Graham, who was very productive for Charlotte the last couple of years? So I'm feeling the Pelicans pending Zion's.
I'm not too high on the Pelicans this year. I don't have them making my playing tournament. In fact, I have them 11th. I just there's too much dysfunction right now in that organization. I saw pictures on Instagram today of Zion Williamson, or they've been making the rounds. Zion Williamson's 2019 photo shoot for Media Day versus 2021 just a few weeks ago. And the weight gain it's very noticeable. Like, we thought Zion was a little chunky coming into his rookie season. And I look at those pictures now compared to a couple weeks ago, and he looks cut compared to what he is now. Like, it's something that it's a problem, I think. It's a bit of a problem, especially talking about those guys with big bodies who like to do things that professional athletes do. Sometimes it just doesn't work out for you, and we're seeing that happen already. And then guys like Brandon Ingram just didn't have the jump last year that you would expect from him. I do like Zion and Lonzo together, and that's a little confusing why they didn't bring him back. Devontae Graham had a couple good months with the Hornets, but overall has been inconsistent at best, I would say, and not a very productive shooter, or not a very efficient shooter, I should say. Better from three than he is from the field. And any player that has those type of stats where the three-point percentage is higher than the field goal percentage, that's a kind of a red flag for me. But going into my play-in games, I think we got the Spurs, and at the 10 seed, I think they make a play-in game. Grizzlies, I think they'll make a play-in game at the 9 seed, hovering around 500. Then official playoff teams, 8 seed, I got the Trailblazers. Okay. Not quite as high on them as you are. We have them pretty similarly ranked. For these bottom teams, they can kind of go either way. I just have Damian Lillard's a great player, obviously. I don't think he's ever had a pick-and-roll threat like Larry Nance Jr. on his team with that alley-oop partner there, because he's had LaMarcus Aldridge as big guys, Hassan Whiteside, Nurkic, not really go up and grab an alley-oop over a defender type of players. And I think that adds a new dimension to the Trailblazers offense, having a player like that to play in the pick and roll with. 7, I got the Clippers for the same reason you have them at 7, just no Kawhi. Not really much more to say about them. 6 seed, I got the Warriors. I don't know if I've got them a little bit too high, if I've got them a little too low. They're just a tough team to predict.
Very much.
because
very much.
obviously you know what you're going to get from Curry. He's Curry. You kind of don't know anything else because Draymond could be all-star Draymond, or he could be not good Draymond. He could be disengaged, gets a technical foul every other game, doesn't want to be there, turnover machine, 25% three-point shooter Draymond.
Distracted Draymond. That should be his new nickname.
Yeah, he could be distracted Draymond, or he could be, what the heck, this is a prime Dennis Rodman Draymond Green, you know?
Right.
Go either
Right.
way.
Well, and last year he got a little closer to the finals team's Draymond.
Right.
But they needed him to be. So I guess I don't. Maybe he's one of those guys that tries to fill whatever he views the team need to be, besides just kicking people in the shorts. Because you need a guy on your team that does that to the other team too. But yeah, they are. You're right. They're a hard team to predict. They're a very hard team to predict. They could go. There's a lot of outcomes for the Warriors.
And they're relying on guys like Jordan Poole, young guys who are unproven. James Wiseman, young guy who is unproven. Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga. They're going to be guys that have to play large roles in this team in their rookie season, relying on guys that, again, are not proven. And then you're relying on Andre Iguodala, older guys, Otto Porter, not quite old, but injury-prone. It's just a weird mix of players on that team. And all it really boils down to is Klay Thompson and how he comes up. And if he plays like, what we're used to from Klay Thompson, an all-NBA caliber player, a player who I saw Kendrick Perkins has included on his top 75 players in NBA history list. I don't know. Bold take, but
that's a bold take.
But if he has anything similar to that, then the Warriors are going to be looking good. But also, I think the West has gotten a lot deeper since their runs towards the top of the Western Conference, which is a way to segue into my 5 seed, the Denver Nuggets, a team who were not really in the upper echelon of the Western Conference when the Warriors were at their peak or in their peak years. Led by Nikola Jokic, obviously, not much to say about him that hasn't been said. I think he's one of the more underrated reigning MVPs of all time. No Christmas Day game, no opening night game. Still people want to debate who the best center in the NBA is. I don't know if you're one of those people as a Sixers fan, but debate mate OG Nathan Poplin likes to throw his vote towards Joel Embiid. So still some people skeptical of who's the best center. I think Jokic comes in with a little bit of fire this year. And then, like you mentioned, guys like Facundo Campazzo, Will Barton, they're just solid guys. Aaron Gordon will have his first full season in a Denver Nuggets jersey. Michael Porter Jr. got the massive contract extension, making over $200 million over a 5-year span. See if he is able to improve into that. 4 seed, I got the Phoenix Suns. Not really because I think they got worse, but just because I think the West got better. I still think both them and the Nuggets finish around 50 wins for the year. Just a really good team, great lineup. I think Mikal Bridges will continue to get better. DeAndre Ayton, and they still got guys like Jay Crowder, Cam Johnson. So they not only have great veterans like CP3 and Jay Crowder, but they got a youth movement going with Booker and Bridges and Ayton, who both got their contracts extended over the summer in that same
I thought
draft
Ayton
process.
didn't. I was going to say, I think Ayton's going to be angry this year.
You're right.
He's going to come out playing hard.
Ayton did not get extended, but is in that same draft class as Bridges, Luka, Trae Young, that class that was eligible for their contract extensions. 3rd seed, I got the Lakers just because of rest and injury. They're the best team in the Western Conference, roster-wise on paper for sure. I'm not as concerned with their preseason play as some people are. I know they're 0-5, 0-6. They're 0-something. Westbrook has been.
They're not trying yet.
But Westbrook is a turnover machine. The Lakers knew they were getting that. Lakers fans knew they were getting that when they traded for Russell Westbrook. So I'm not too scared about how that'll turn out. I still think they'll be fine, at least in the regular season. And at the 2 seed, I got the Dallas Mavericks. And here's why. So last season they were the 5 seed. And I don't know if we all remember because obviously they ended the season really well. Luka ended the season really well, especially in those playoffs. But they started the season horribly. Luka Doncic looked out of shape. He couldn't hit a 3. He couldn't hit a free throw. And they still were able to finish as a 5 seed. So I'm looking at that. I'm saying Luka has played really well in the preseason. 3-point shooting's been great. Field goal percentage has been really good. Looks like he is back in shape. So we got a better Luka coming into the season. Tim Hardaway Jr. is going to be Tim Hardaway Jr. Porzingis is actually starting the season with the Mavericks this year. Last season, he was injured for a while, so we have more continuity there to start off. Guys like, Reggie Bullock, just a solid three-point shooter to bring in. Jalen Brunson is always pretty solid. Dwight Powell was also injured, I believe, to start the season last year. He had the Achilles injury. So there's just more continuity there. And if they could do the 5 seed last year with a team that was in shambles for the first couple months of the season, then I think there's no reason why they can't leapfrog a couple teams up in the Western Conference, especially seeing injuries to guys like Jamal Murray. And seeing a year where maybe Chris Paul takes a few more games off as the Suns maybe drop from a 2 seed to what I have them as a 4 seed. And then other than that, I mean, those 2 teams, you leapfrog them as the 5 seed, and then the Clippers were the other team they'd have to leapfrog to get up to number 2. And
Clippers going to fall.
Lost Kawhi Leonard. So
yeah,
I don't know. You can convince yourself that the Mavericks could be the 2 seed, or you can convince yourself for the reasons you did that they could fall out to a 7-8 seed like they did Luka's sophomore season.
I'll tell you what'll convince me.
Okay.
If I hear that Boban Marjanovic is in the starting lineup game 1, and this is the new plan that we're going to get some Boban minutes. I love that guy, by the way.
He's a shooter now.
All he does is score at like a 90% field goal rate and get every rebound that falls off the rim and block 3 or 4 shots when he plays for 10 minutes. I know he's big and slow, but like, why can't he get a little more action? I just don't understand. I mean, when Dwight Powell is
at an all-time high too.
What's that?
I said he keeps team morale at an all-time high too. They love Boban.
Who doesn't love Boban?
Exactly.
Who doesn't love Boban?
He's awesome.
I mean, if nothing else, to get your fans in the seats, come on, guys. Come on, Dallas.
And then as my number 1 seed, I got the Utah Jazz. If it's not broke, don't fix it. I don't have any teams in the West sniffing 60 games this year, though. 60 wins, I mean. Jazz are my top team with 56 wins. All of the next 4 hover around 50-ish. Then I think up to the Grizzlies, all these teams finish above 500. So I still think the West is going to be very competitive. It's going to be a bloodbath as per usual. But that's how my top 10 is rounded out so far. And, maybe a couple days before the playoffs, I might amend my list and see how it's looking. Maybe come April, a couple days before the playoffs start, maybe I'll repredict.
Well, yeah, let's do a redo in April. I'll have a better idea in April.
But that's my top 10. I feel pretty confident about it. But yours is pretty solid too. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing we're really way different on is the
Mavericks.
That's really the only thing. Otherwise, we're pretty comparable. I mean, I've got the Lakers as the 1 seed, just assuming that they'll run ISO with whomever they want, and what any of those 3 unstoppable characters will.
One thing with the Lakers, so. I'm not concerned about it. Just confused, is LeBron James has lost a lot of weight, like muscle. He looks really thin, and his media day.
I think at age 36, you need to start dropping some of that weight. I mean, your ligaments can only handle so much for so long. He's been playing for 20 years now in the NBA almost. So that's a lot of wear and tear on a big body. The Zion effect.
Right. That's fair.
There's another reason to be concerned about Zion. He's already got the foot injury and surgery, and now he's added 30 pounds of McDonald's or whatever. So
it's rough. I'll try to link the photo into the video when I'm talking about it earlier on, and hopefully when you get to this point of the video, you'll already have seen the picture.
Perfect.
So I'll see what I can do there. Now, you want to get us started off with the East? You want me to start this time?
Up to you. You make the call.
I'll go ahead and start.
All right.
I'll start at the 11 seed this time because I think this might be a little controversial, but I think the Hornets missed the play-in game. Last year, they were in it. They were well out of it before Gordon Hayward went down with injury and then LaMelo Ball went down with injury. But I just think the East behind them got a whole lot deeper. I really like Hayward. He was an all-star contender before his injury, having a great resurgent year with a team that didn't really have a whole lot of expectation. I think LaMelo Ball is only going to get better. Terry Rozier is one of those guys that will have his 10 to 15, 35-point, 7 3-point shots made games. He kind of always does. Mason Plumlee, I think, is better than Cody Zeller. They added him.
I think that's a big upgrade at center for them.
Yeah, so they definitely got better. They'll have more continuity, but I think the 10 seed Toronto Raptors are a little bit better. The Raptors always do something, and I think they do something again this year. They always are right in there, right around that mix. It'll be interesting to see how they play this year. First season in 45 years without Kyle Lowry on their team, so might be a little rough to start the season. But I think at this point, Fred VanVleet is ready to take over that number 1 spot. I think Pascal Siakam might be ready to slide in at the number 2 spot. A lot of confusion with him. But then you got OG Anunoby, you got Scotty Barnes, you got these long defenders. And they're just going to be a nightmare to score on. I don't think they finish 500, but the East, especially when you get to those bottom teams, it's going to be a little bit easier to slide in when you're 39, 38 wins. And Nick Nurse always thinks of something. He's one of the top 2 or 3 coaches in the league, in my opinion. I just think they'll be solid, they'll be great defensively. And if they can get something from Scotty Barnes, Fred VanVleet, Siakam, then I think they'll be able to have a pretty decent year. Plus Gary Trent Jr.
And don't forget who entered Toronto this year.
Who entered Toronto this year?
Enter the Dragic.
The Dragon.
For all 24 games that he'll play.
Goran Dragic, right until he's traded to the Dallas Mavericks with his fellow Slovenian brother Luka Doncic.
That's right.
That's all
I really don't see that as a horrible downgrade from Lowry either at this point, based on what Lowry's been giving them for the past couple of years. I mean, Dragic wasn't getting minutes from Miami, but when he does, he's productive. I mean, he's a solid point guard option. So it looks like they'll have him running at 2, which is weird. I think he makes a better 6-man option with Trent starting next to VanVleet, but we'll see what they end up doing. But like you said, I think Nurse is probably one of the best coaches in the league. I mean, top 2 or 3 coaches, I agree.
Then at the 9 seed, also making that playing game, I got the Pacers. LeVert is out to start the year. I think it's very likely that Ben Simmons plays for the Pacers at some point in the season. If the Malcolm Brogdon trade ever falls through, maybe.
That would be interesting.
Perhaps. It might be their only avenue to travel down at this point in the year. But even if that doesn't happen, Pacers are a deep team with Domantas Sabonis, Karis LeVert when he's healthy, Malcolm Brogdon, a really solid point guard. They're just a really good team, really well-rounded. Miles Turner, TJ Warren had that obviously insane stretch in the bubble. And even you take that away, he'd still be known as not elite scorer, but a guy who can get buckets. Right above them at the 8 seed, a little bit of a drop-off. I got the Knicks. The Knicks made a lot of off-season improvements. They got Kemba Walker. They got Evan Fournier. Tom Thibodeau re-signed a lot of his guys, Derrick Rose, Taj Gibson. But I think last year might have been a bit of a flash in the pan. I think the Hawks, we saw, they kind of figured out Julius Randle last season in the playoffs especially. They exposed him for being a player who shoots a lot of low-efficiency shots, a lot of mid-range off-the-dribble shots. Obviously, I think his job will be a lot easier with Fournier and Walker on his roster now. But I still think he's maybe made the last of his all-star teams for his career.
Wow.
Yeah, it might be a bold take, but I don't really see it as
that's a hot take, I think.
I don't know. I just don't see it with him, really. You know, some players you just watch and you feel like this is a good player. This is an all-star caliber player. With Julius Randle, especially watching him in the playoffs, I never watched him and thought, wow, this guy is really, really good. Never got those moments from him.
Yeah, I think what's good. I mean, I think Randall's strengths are that he can do. He's a do-it-all. He's like a Draymond Green. I think he's an inflated Draymond Green, like a hype, or maybe a like bigger hype version of Draymond Green. I mean, he does a little bit of everything. He can do it all, but he's not. Yeah, he's inefficient. I mean, that's his biggest drawback. I think is he's an inefficient scorer. He'll put up a bunch of points, but we'll see if that changes with guys like Kemba. Of course, can Kemba stay on the court, and what does he have left? Because over the last couple of years, I mean, Kemba didn't show a whole lot. So I don't know. I mean, in theory, on paper, it's a good pickup.
And well, let me point out one thing with Kemba Walker. Just say this. ESPN, House of Highlights, Bleacher Report, all they want to talk about, and all these accounts that say they know everything about basketball, all they say is Kemba Walker. He's going to have another all-star season in New York. He's going to be reinvigorated because he played in UConn and he had his great NCAA tournament run. at MSG, and like, just because he played some college games in Madison Square Garden does not mean all of a sudden his knees are going to become college knees. Like, I appreciate
he's getting up there in years.
He's got some good memories in MSG for sure, but his knees are still a lot older and a lot less strong than they used to be. So I think we can pump the brakes on All-Star season Kemba Walker. That's at least my opinion.
I would definitely pump the brakes on All-Star season Kemba Walker. I'll believe that when I see it.
When we look down in a couple of years, 10, 20 years in the past, or in 10, 20 years in the future, when we look at the past couple of years, and we look at Kemba Walker starting so many All-Star games in the Eastern Conference, that's just going to be so confusing for the casual NBA fan who are someone who's just getting into the NBA, who sees Kemba as a kind of a 20-6 type of guy for most of his career. And you're going to say that guy started like 4 consecutive Eastern Conference All-Star games. It was rough in the East for a little while. But
it's an indictment. Yeah, it's an indictment of the East for sure.
My 8 through 6 teams, they're all interchangeable, I would say. At the 7th seed, I have the Chicago Bulls. I really like Zach LaVine. I really like Lonzo Ball. I like DeMar DeRozan. I like Vucevic, and I love Alex Caruso. And I like Project Pat Williams. They got a lot of good players. They're going to be able to defend really well on the perimeter with Caruso and Lonzo. They're going to be able to defend really well on the wing when they want to play Pat Williams. He's a good defender. Zach LaVine played really well on Team USA, being more of a secondary option and more of a defensive-minded player. He's definitely got that gift to be a good defender. He's top 5, probably most athletic guys in the league. So he could definitely, if he puts his mind to it, probably be a defensive stopper in this league. And even if not, they got Lonzo and Caruso, who are both kind of known to be that. A full season with Vucevic at the 5 shouldn't hurt either. He's one of the most efficient centers in the league, one of the best centers in the league, especially at scoring and shooting the ball. So I got them in at the 7 seed. At the 6 seed, I got the Boston Celtics. Now, do I have them a little bit too high? I think I might.
Same debate I'm having.
Because you got Horford and Jaylen Brown both recently came down with COVID. That's a concern. I think they'll be fine come, November or end of October, whenever because the season starts October 19th, so probably about end of October is when they would be back to getting into some games, or at least getting into some practices. But there's just too many weird things with him. Like, what does Robert Williams bring? If Robert Williams is really good, then the Celtics could be really good. If he's not, if he's still inconsistent, then the Celtics won't be very great. If Al Horford is still pretty good, then they could be pretty good. I mean, Tatum is going to have something similar to an MVP caliber season, I think, this season. He's shown the ability to do it. Went toe-to-toe with the Brooklyn Nets big 3 in the playoffs, dropping 50 pieces, and in the play-in game scored a 50-point game too. So he's obviously got an ability to score that not a lot of players in this NBA currently have. I don't love the fit with him and Jaylen Brown, but you still put that talent together, and it's good enough to get you a playoff spot at least. Dennis Schroeder, we'll see what he brings. I'm not really too high on Dennis Schroeder. I'm not too high on any of their guards, really. Peyton Pritchard is fine, but coming into his sophomore season, I don't expect too much from him. Then you got guys like Aaron Naismith, Romeo Langford, young guys that just haven't shown it yet, but they're still holding on to.
And they brought Josh Richardson in, but
who did absolutely nothing for the Mavericks.
Nothing for the Mavericks last year.
Terrible.
Did not help them get that 5 seed at all.
Yeah, he helped them get the 5 seed in that they could have maybe been a 4 or a 3 seed without him.
And they moved. Well, they started. There was that about mid-season. They pulled it. He started coming off the bench. He was not starting towards the end of the year, as I recall. And so you noted that they were playing their best basketball towards the end of the year when Richardson was sort of phased out. His minutes had come down, and he was playing a lesser role. So I was actually really hyped for them last year, getting Richardson.
Me too.
I thought Richardson had a lot of
on all defensive team.
Yeah, exactly. And between his ability to score and facilitate, I mean, I thought he brought a lot, and he didn't show anything last year. So
moving on to my
5. He could resurge with Boston. We'll see.
Probably not, though.
Probably not. I'm not expecting that. Yeah.
So my 5 seed is the Miami Heat. Maybe a bit of a controversial pick, but I'm not too high on the Kyle Lowry acquisition. I think it's just a lot of old guys, kind of. Kyle Lowry
Yeah.
getting up there. Jimmy Butler is getting up there. Had a really down season last year. I mean, everybody on the Heat had a down season last year. Tyler
They
Hero,
had a surprisingly bad
Bam
season.
was awful last season, especially in the playoffs. He looked like he forgot how to dribble. He was afraid to move with the basketball. It was weird to watch because he had some games against like Brooklyn, I remember, where Butler was out. He put up 40, hit a couple threes in the regular season. And then it's like that player was non-existent in the playoffs. So we got to see a big season from him. Got to see a big season from Tyler Hero. Got to see a big season from Duncan Robinson too. And not to say they're bad or they won't end up doing all right in the playoffs, but my 4-seeded Atlanta Hawks, baby, they're just a little bit better. They are just a little bit better, led by the new NBA supervillain Trae Young. He's just he's an electrifying player to watch. He's a fun player to watch. And I don't like him very much, but he's grown on me a lot since the playoffs and that run. He's a fantastic player. He's fun to watch. He is gifted offensively, and I don't think the new NBA rule about drawing, like foul baiting, will impact his scoring that much. He's still going to be able to get to the line, hit threes, all the things he's shown the ability to do. John Collins is the perfect pick and roll partner for him. He can pick and pop it too, step out to the 3-point line, post up a little bit. Clint Capella, another lob threat, great defensive player. Kevin Huerter, the Red Mamba.
That's your guy.
Starts at
That's your
the
guy.
small forward or comes off the bench behind Cam Reddish. Either way, he has shown the ability, especially in those playoffs, to just kind of be really good. Not even pulling out the homer card here. Game 7 against the 76ers, that was something I was not expecting from Huerter. And saw a couple step back threes he's hitting the preseason so far, which is a new addition to the game. So I'm excited to see what he brings. He's a long athletic defender, good shooter, can handle the ball. You got Bogdan Bogdanovic, who was fearless as a player. Got injured towards the end of the postseason, but against the Knicks, he showed that he was not afraid to take the big shots, and that's saying a lot in Madison Square Garden when you got a close game, and he's still pulling up in the corner, step back threes, like it's nothing, Kind of like a Luka Doncic in that he's been playing professionally basically forever, playing against men forever. So he's got that mindset of, more of a mature mindset in the league. I don't really think he gets phased as easily as some of these other guys. Then, like I mentioned, Cam Reddish has a really high ceiling. DeAndre Hunter has a high ceiling when healthy. Just a lot of great young talent on that roster. And with Nate McMillan at the helm for a full year, I definitely think they can play really well. And if they were in a different conference or not in the same conference as the 76ers, Bucks, and Nets, then they would probably be a 1 or 2 seed. But the 3 seed is, unfortunately, the Philadelphia 76ers in my mind. Unfortunately,
Well,
Hawks, I should say.
you'll when we get to my picks, you're gonna laugh at me, I'm sure, but
wow, I'm excited to hear it now because I can't tell if that means you have the 76ers really low or if you have them as repeating as the number 1 seed. But either way, I think the Sixers hover around 55 wins. Whether or not Simmons plays is obviously a massive question mark, but Embiid is going to be Embiid. He really seems to have matured and to basically developed, and I don't give a whatever, I'm not a guy anymore that's going to beef with you on Twitter or make fun of anything. I'm tired of that. I'm tired of being just some funny dude who gets outplayed in the postseason. I'm ready to be an elite player in the NBA. I'm ready to take up the mantle as being one of the best players in the NBA. He showed that he was ready to do that last season, and in these conferences where he's had to address Ben Simmons' absence, he's shown that mindset too, where it's kind of like I'll just go to war with the guys I have, and that's really important to see that from Embiid off the court. Then Tobias Harris is solid. Matisse Thybulle, someone Coach Z mentioned in a preseason video as a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. He's as elite as they come on defense, only getting better. Seth Curry, great shooter. They just got a lot of guys that can make things happen. Furkan Korkmaz is a player I like a lot. Solid three-point shooter as well. So I think they hover in around that 3 seed. Bucks, I think, just walk into the number 2 seed. They showed last season that it doesn't matter if they're the number 1 seed. They can still go through the East, and an injured East, but the East, they can still go through it as a seed that is not the number 1 seed, which is what they were going for the 2 years prior. I just think they have the talent to just kind of luck into a number 2 seed. But they don't have the talent to lock into a number 1 seed anymore, because the Brooklyn Nets are the only team I have finishing above 60 wins this season. At 61-21 is my prediction for them, just because they have the probable MVP. They have the second best scorer in the NBA as the probable MVP's wingman. Kyrie can do whatever he wants. He can play, he can not play. The Nets are still going to be the Nets, because just listen to a couple of these lineups. Without Kyrie, you can throw out there. You can go Patty Mills, Harden, Joe Harris, KD, Blake Griffin. That's a really good lineup. You could go James Harden, Joe Harris, Bruce Brown as your defensive stopper, KD, Blake Griffin. That's another insane lineup. Harden, Joe Harris, KD, Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge. Another insane lineup. You can throw in Nick Claxton if you're feeling adventurous. I mean, they just have so many lineups you can throw out there that no team in the NBA can really match.
They had guys like James Johnson this year, who's always underrated, perennially underrated, but a
Paul
great
Millsap
defender.
As well, an older guy,
Millsap.
older fellow, but still a serviceable player nonetheless.
But you're only going to ask 10 to 15 minutes for Millsap.
Yeah.
So when he'll be fresh every game when he comes in. He'll come in and do his thing down low. He'll play great defense. He'll get you a bunch of boards and facilitate a little bit of offense if you need him to. I mean, it's a great pickup.
The Kyrie situation, I see it as less of a negative and more as a question mark, because it can really only make them better, I think. He's come out and said on his Instagram Live, I'm not going to retire. Kind of contradicts rumors that came out earlier, but now that it's coming straight from his mouth, I think that makes teams more willing to trade for him. And if you're trading away Kyrie and you're getting a defensive guy or something else, then that only makes your team better, because it's better to have someone that can play than someone that can't, even if that player is not Kyrie's level. And especially to get rid of a guy that you're going to have to answer questions about 82 games of the season plus playoffs if he sticks around that entire time. So I only see that issue, assuming he doesn't get vaccinated at all this year, as a way to make the team better, whether hopefully through trading him. I don't think they'll cut him or anything like that. That would be kind of insane. But I think the Nets still finish number 1 just because KD and Harden. Can't get much better than that duo right there.
No, yeah, it's a perfectly valid argument. Well, without further ado, so the 8 seed,
Philadelphia,
like you were saying. No, I didn't bring them that low, but they are going to be significantly lower than I would normally want to rank them. I've got this like final slot as a battle between like you did. I mean, we basically had the same scenario. The Raptors, Hornets, Celtics, and Pacers, well, roughly the same. And I put the Raptors in as my 8 seed. I want to put the Raptors higher, but I don't really know why I didn't put them higher, frankly.
Kind of funny because they're playing Canada, but it feels like they're America's team. Everybody kind of likes the Raptors.
This is true. Well, yeah, you can't really not like the Raptors, you know?
Play hard.
Like exactly. And they're a bunch of like, you know what I like about the Raptors? That's a homegrown team. I mean, not homegrown because they're all from Canada, but like they most of their production is through the draft. They're not making trades for these superstars. I mean, Van Vliet became a star on his own.
Win their sole championship making a trade for a superstar.
All right, fair enough. Leonard thing. That's a good point. But every other year, they're up there competing and they're scrapping and they're a 3 seed and they've got like a bunch of no-name guys and they're back at that again. And they're a fun team to root for, but they've got a ton of talent. Like you were saying, I mean, I think Van Vliet's a superstar this year. I think he's going to leap into the all-star game for sure, be like potentially a starting point guard depending on how the season comes to fruition. But not having to share all that work in the backcourt with Lowry, I think he's going to be super high usage. And generally speaking, Van Vliet's pretty efficient. I mean, he scores shooting well over 40% from the field, but a little guy shooting threes a lot. That's pretty efficient, 42, 43% field goal percentages. He gets assists and everything else. Siakam is a do-it-all kind of guy. I mean, he's sort of like I hate to call him a poor man's Giannis, but I mean, he's got that sort of profile to his game.
Yeah.
And a lot of good ancillary players. I mean, we mentioned Dragic, and we mentioned the guy they got from the Blazers, Gary Trent, and Anunoby. Like, these are all really solid players, and if Boucher can like develop some consistency, because he has shown flashes of being like a potentially huge difference maker as a big who can shoot threes and do all sorts of things. But he just hasn't been consistent. So if he can find some consistency, that's a super strong and pretty deep lineup. Even guys like Malachi Flynn really balled out last year when given minutes. And who's the rookie? Not Giddey. They got Barnes. Barnes looks great in the preseason. So, I mean, they've got a lot of talent on that team. Hard to see them not making the playoffs this year.
They've got
I put them at 8.
A lot of Draymond Green disciples on that team. Scotty Barnes, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, Fred VanVleet, just some scrappy Draymond Green type of guys.
They should change their name to the Toronto Draymonds.
Yeah, I think so. I think it fits better.
So I got Raptors at 8. Make sure I do these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. And then at 7, I believe you had them in the same place. I've got the Chicago Bulls. For all the same reasons you discussed. I mean, Zach LaVine's a star, and adding Vooch last year, I mean, there's an underrated center.
Yeah,
Nikola Vucevic is maybe the most underrated player in the NBA, because all he does every year is average 26 and 10, shooting 56% from the field from all over the court. I mean, like, the guy is he's just great. I was sad when Philadelphia traded him all those years ago.
Wow,
because it was like, man, we've got a great center. What are we doing? Well, Philadelphia? Yeah, we ended up upgrade. I mean, Embiid could be considered an upgrade, although Embiid is not as durable as Vooch has been. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm happy. I can't complain about having Joel Embiid as the center. But yeah, those guys adding DeMar DeRozan. I mean, they did a great job in free agency to bring Ball and DeRozan in there. I like Patrick Williams a lot. I think he's a huge piece to that team, who really played well as a rookie. I mean, you're not going to find giant stat lines from him, but when a rookie comes in and is playing 30 minutes a game, that says something about him, especially on a team that had a pretty good amount of talent on their wings. Even Kobe White as a guy who can come off the bench and give you scoring. I mean, that's another team that's running pretty deep. So I got the Bulls at 7. I do put my Sixers at 6. Wow. And this was tough. And here's my rationale. While I like guys like Maxey, I think actually Maxey might be better than Ben Simmons in that role. Like, he can score from everywhere, and he's not like a one. You don't get the sense that Tyrese Maxey's afraid to shoot a big shot if he needs to. Yeah. And so, but sometimes when you get this big media storm around one player, it throws off team chemistry. And so this Simmons mess, I think it's going to hurt the team in general. I think it's a distraction that they don't need. It's a team with easily distracted players like Joel Embiid, who I'm hoping you're right, that he has hit sort of, he has matured significantly since his first couple of years in the NBA. But between that and the fact that Embiid has his issues staying on the court, I mean, it's always he's constantly on the injury report. It doesn't mean he won't play through them, but like it's always a knee and an ankle here with Joel Embiid, and you kind of worry that eventually it's going to catch up to him. Even with that, still a super strong roster. You mentioned all the guys. They have somebody for everything. The Tebows and Danny Greens of the world are great defenders. Danny Green and Shake Milton, guys that can shoot the ball from around the perimeter. They can spread the floor pretty well. Got a lot of talent. Tobias Harris, another super underrated player, just pretty good in all facets of the game. So they're definitely in the playoffs, even with the distraction, but I have them just down a little bit. Although it might be stupid to rank them below the Miami Heat at number 5. I think Jimmy Butler is a super duper star. Like, I think he's a guy that can carry the weight. In last year, I'm not sure what happened to the Heat, but I do think that they're a well-coached team. I think their coach, Spoelstra, is top 5 in the league. I didn't used to think that.
GM survey had him as the best coach in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say who the one, right? But like he's in that mix of the guys who have, I think are in the best, the best coaches. I think they'll turn it around this year. I think last year was just an odd year with all of the COVID mandates and stuff. And they played games. There was games where the Heat literally had they were pulling guys up from the developmental league,
Right.
because they were out of, and actually like starting them. I mean, like Gabe Vincent, guys like that were starting because everyone was out for COVID protocols and stuff. And I think that threw off a lot for them. It seemed like they had more issues with that than some of the other teams. So I think this year you're going to find the Heat back in the swing of things. Not because of Kyle Lowry. That to me, that the Dragic Lowry swap is negligible. I mean, it's not a huge upgrade to me over Dragic. I think Lowry offers a slightly more diverse game, but again, he's like 36, 37 years old now too, right? I mean, he's getting up there. So I just think that's a well-rounded team. How all those old guys gel together could be an issue. I mean, that's a lot of Adebayo is I don't want to say he's ball dominant, but he's like a guy that you want to run your offense through. But so is Jimmy Butler, and so is Kyle Lowry. So who's getting the usage, and who are we depending on with these possessions? At 4, you're going to laugh at this one, but I put the Knicks back up there, man. I don't know that I totally agree with your assessment of Randall, though I don't disagree. Your assessment of Randall is definitely what I thought of him in his first few years, where he came out as a high-profile, big-time guy out of Kentucky. He's going to do all this stuff, always sort of underachieved. But last year, his numbers were just through the roof. And so you have to be pretty good to achieve those numbers. He definitely got shut down by Atlanta in the playoffs. So what I'd be curious to see is whether that was just some excellent game planning by a great coach with some great talent, or if that was a sign of things to come. I don't think many teams are going to have that kind of success against Julius Randle. And adding a guy like Kemba Walker, and he's the big if Kemba Walker can give a good solid 25 minutes a game and split that role with Derrick Rose, you have like instant scoring at all times from that point guard position. Their bigs would be the only concern. So can Mitchell Robinson become the guy that maybe some folks have forecasted him to be? Can he get healthy? Right. And if he can't, you got another guy in a similar situation. Tons of upside with a guy like Nerlens Noel, who can really defend the basket and provide some moderate scoring and some big stats and stuff. So like the pieces are there if those guys can stay healthy. But I also like Alec Burks.
Okay, yeah.
Underrated scorer. I mean, guy can come in and give you 20 minutes and drop 20 points. So guys like him, RJ Barrett, really developing nicely over the years. I mean, every year he gets better. So we'll see if he takes another step forward this year.
Right, so I'm trying to pay attention to what you're saying, but my mind is it's going back to one thing.
Julius Randle getting shut down in the playoffs.
Am I correct to assume that you have the Boston Celtics not in the playoffs at all?
You are correct.
Wow.
And
I don't know if I can get mad at you for that one.
I have them at 9, and I have the Pacers at 10, and I have the Hornets at 11. Like I have those teams and the Raptors just like going at it at the end of the year. I don't really know who to pick there. I just went with my heart, and I like the Raptors best out of those teams, so I put them in there. It could be the Celtics. It could be the Pacers. I think my problem with the Pacers is injuries.
Right.
I hate Karis LeVert constantly. I love Karis LeVert. I think he's great. He's phenomenal. Always hurt. And his weird injuries. The guy, he's got a fracture in his back now. Like, can the guy catch a break? Can someone give LeVert a break, please? Malcolm Brogdon, lots of injuries. I mean, Warren, lots of injuries. Like, they have a ton of talent. Super great players. I love Sabonis. And Sabonis is like top 10 player for me, I think, in the NBA at this point. The guy's a stud. But they just can't seem to stay healthy. And every year it's like the Pacers are good, they're good. Then a bunch of injuries hit and they fall off. And the same thing happened last year. In any case, yes, I have the Celtics at 9, which is not to knock Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. I just feel like with a new coach, I don't know much about Udoka.
Udoka?
Udoka. I'm not sure. I apologize. I hope that didn't offend anybody. I just don't know how to say his name. A new coach. I mean, I don't really know what to make of Brad Stevens. Really thought he was an excellent coach, but last couple of years, you kind of wonder, maybe not as good as I thought. But with a new coaching staff, you hope that they start running a little more of this offense, I think, through Jason Tatum, because that is a legit superstar, like all NBA kind of caliber talent. And I don't know that they've used him appropriately in the past. So yeah, I did put the Celtics at 9. We'll see. I'll probably be looking really stupid at the end of the year with that, though. At number 3, our top 3 are the same 3 teams in a different order. The Hawks, who I would like to remind you on this show last year, I had at number 3.
Wow.
Before. Wow. Yeah, because you were like, really? You like my team? I was like, yeah, dude, I like the Hawks a lot. And they got better. The only reason that the Hawks didn't go to the finals last year, quite frankly, is because of injuries.
The only reason Brooklyn Nets didn't hold the trophy at the end of the year, quite frankly, is because Kevin Durant's shoe is a little bit too big.
That's fair.
You play devil's advocate with this one all day.
This is fair. I look at Atlanta's roster from top to bottom, and I don't see a deeper unit in the league. Even a guy like DeLon Wright, bringing him in as a secondary point guard, that guy he's not consistent, but he has done some great things in games. In the past, like he was starting. Teams signed him to big contracts to be their starting point guard. Didn't pan out, but he's a really effective, I think, backup point guard. Bogdanovich, Herter, Lou Williams.
Danilo Gallinari, player I didn't mention.
Yeah, who's a weak point here so far? DeAndre Hunter, if he can stay healthy, is like legitimately all-star caliber player. That guy is phenomenally good. UVA reference. Not that I'm a UVA fan. Cam Reddish is a legitimately really, really good basketball player if he can get healthy. Last year there was injuries, man. Some really key components. There's major injuries, couldn't get off the injury snide there. So, but John Collins, even Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot, TLC. No, I'm just kidding. But he's this guy come in and get you some 3-point shooting and stuff. So it's deep. It's just a deep roster. And with Capella, now if something happens to him, Kongwu, am I saying that right?
Kongwu.
Yeah, potential there. But even if he doesn't pan out, Gorgie Dang, man, dude, that is a deep group of centers. That's the best group of centers in the league. Well, no, it's not. The Sixers have the best group of centers in the league with Embiid and Drummond, but that's still high profile. Every space on the court, there's no weak spot there. And I really like what the Hawks are doing. Well-coached team. And like you said, Trae Young is just fire, man. He is Steph Curry 2.0 to me. I'm a big Trae Young fan, but we had those debates last year. I'm glad you're coming around I'm
coming around on him.
Yeah, you're leaving the dark side and joining us here and Trae Young fandom. Number 2, you're not going to be happy with me, but I'm putting your Nets at number 2. And for the same reason that I put the Sixers at number 6. Well, the Sixers at number 6 is because their name is the Sixers and they're 6. Okay, never mind. The Nets, this Kyrie stuff, man, is a distraction. And normally, I don't make too big of a play on these things, but when one of your top superstars is just a distraction, it causes rifts. It's every year you see it with teams. So until that's resolved, I think the Nets are just going to have some wobbliness, inconsistency, that they shouldn't have with all the star power. I think their best move would be to jettison Kyrie Irving, because the other thing that we talked about last year is that Kyrie Irving is a death nail to your finals hopes. I do know that he won that one year with LeBron and whatever, and was actually probably the MVP of that final series. But generally speaking, it's like some kind of dark cloud follows Kyrie Irving around to every team he goes to. Not enough to make me move the Nets lower than the 2 seed, but it was enough for me to put the Bucks number 1 over them.
That's
and the Bucks are literally the exact same team they were last year. I don't even think they added a free agent.
Got Grayson Allen.
They got Grayson Allen. Hey, man, someone's going to come in and punch some people. So whenever you need some toughness, throw Grayson out there. He'll start a fight on the court and sprain his ankle while he's doing it. It's kind of like the Suns argument or the Jazz argument. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, nothing was broken. They didn't fix anything. It's Yeah. Rinse, wash, repeat for them. Yeah. So, I mean, good health is the only thing keeping them from making another run at the finals, I think, obviously. So that is my top 8 for better or for worse in the Eastern Conference.
All right, nice. So just to review, I'll reread mine real quick, and then Mr. Mercier, if you want to reread yours, and then we can wrap it up just so everyone is on the same page here. Sorry, it went off for a second. Let me pull it up real quick.
Quite all right.
I'll do my 10 seeds since we have the play-in. Start in the West. I got the Spurs at the 10 seed, the Grizzlies at the 9, the Trailblazers at the 8, Clippers at the 7, Warriors at 6, Nuggets at 5, Suns at 4, Lakers 3, Mavericks 2, and the Jazz repeating at number 1. And in the East, just went over these a couple minutes ago, I got Raptors at 10, followed by the Pacers, Knicks, and Bulls, 9, 8, 7, rounding out those play-in game teams. I got the Celtics squeaking in at 6, Heat at 5, and then taking home court, I got the Hawks, 76ers, Bucks, and the 60-win Nets.
Love it. The only 60-win team.
Only 60-win team this year.
Totally plausible too, by the way. I mean, theoretically the Nets could push for 70, depending on which way the wind blows. But
right.
All right, my folks from the West here, the 10 seed, got the Pelicans, but that might get leapfrogged by the Wolves, depending Zion Williamson's foot situation. 9, I got the Mavs just missing. And then 8, the Grizzlies. 7, Clippers. 6, Trailblazers. 5, Nuggets. 4, Warriors. 3, Suns. 2, Jazz. And 1, unfortunately, the Lakers. In the East, the 10 seed is the Hornets, narrowly edging out the Pacers. And then the 9 seed Celtics just missing out on the playoffs this year. At 8, getting into the playoffs is the Raptors. 7, making a huge leap is the Bulls. 6, the Sixers. 5, the Heat. 4, the Knicks. 3, the Hawks. 2, Nets. And 1, Bucks.
All right.
Now I got a question for you.
All right.
Leader of the debate mates. What is the bold prediction for this year? What's your bold prediction for the NBA 2021-22 season?
My bold prediction. I'm going to say, I don't know if this is my bold prediction, and it's off the top of my head, so there will probably be more to come later on, which is, again, why you guys should subscribe. But while we're on this topic of playoff teams and whatnot, I'm going to say the Lakers don't make it out of the West. I think the Western Conference will have a representative in the NBA Finals that does not wear purple and gold.
I like it. I'm hoping you're right, by the way.
Do you want to match me? You have a bold prediction you want to throw out here?
Yeah, I got you. Your boys are going to make it out of the East into the finals for the first time ever. When have the Hawks ever been to the finals?
The Hawks.
Never, ever.
I think the Hawks are going to make it to the finals.
I'm going with the Hawks.
Wow.
In the finals. I don't know who I have them playing yet, though, in the West. The West is tricky.
Yeah, the West is tricky.
I liked the Hawks a lot. Like, I wanted to put them at 1 just knowing that was probably unrealistic. But when it comes time to the playoffs, if that team gets there healthy, I really think nobody wants to play the Hawks this year in the playoffs. Too much talent all over the place. And a few years together, digging the Hawks. Bold take. My bold prediction.
That's a very bold take. And I think that is a good place to end it. Pushing a bit over an hour here. So I'm sure the ones of you that stuck around don't hear us talk too much more. But
we'll let you get a snack now.
Thank you, Mr. Mercier, for coming on again. We always have a blast whenever you're up on here on the Debate Mates.
Thank you, Matt. It's a pleasure to be with you, man. I appreciate you having me on here.
Nothing better than just debating some basketball. It's the best thing to do. Just talking
basketball. That's what we do during guitar class. So
it is. Yeah, exactly.
We'll play guitar. No, we're going to talk basketball.
So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Debate Mates. We'll circle back around here in a couple months and see who made more accurate predictions. And until next time.